Well, hello, everyone, and thank you so much for coming to Advocacy 101. We are hoping you feel nice and prepared for the North Dakota legislative session after this hour-long training. So this is the League of Women Voters of North Dakota. There will be 3 of us speaking. We have myself, Whitney Oxendahl, my pronouns are she, her, and we have Amy Phillips and Carol Sawicki. They will also be presenting, so you'll see their faces later. And we are advocacy volunteers, again, for the League of Women Voters of North Dakota. We'll go through a few housekeeping items. This training is and will be recorded. We will send you the training and the slides afterward because you registered for this training. We will also post it on our YouTube channel and on our social media. Please stay on mute throughout the training, and you can put questions in the chat, but we will leave time at the end for Q&A. So please stay on mute throughout and put your questions in the chat or wait till the end. All right, so here's our agenda for today. We are going to go through the basics of the state legislature. So what is it? What does it do? Who's in there and how do they get there? And then how to find your state legislator. We're going to talk about how a bill becomes a law. So this is kind of the basics of the session that we have upcoming. We're going to go through using the legislative website, preparing your testimony, our advocacy and our resources, and then we'll have time for questions. So let's get going. Here we go. Oh, we are the League of Women Voters of North Dakota. So the league began in 1920 after women were granted the right to vote. Amy, do you have a question? You are on mute.
I don't see the slideshow. Does anybody else see it?
Yes, I see it, Amy.
Okay, I do not see it.
Okay.
Go up to view and play with it.
Okay.
Okay. So the League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan grassroots membership organization. And that nonpartisanship means the league does not support or oppose candidates or political parties. And if you have a question, please put it into the chat. We have chapters in Bismarck, Mandan, Fargo-Moorhead, and Minot, and a potential new chapter in Grand Forks. So if you're interested in joining, please do. We even have at-large members across the state who are not in those areas. Okay, so first we're going to go through the basics of the state legislature. We have 141 citizens making our laws in North Dakota. Our state government in North Dakota is modeled after our national government, our federal government. So we have our version of Congress. We have our legislative branch, the North Dakota Assembly, which is our state legislature. We even have a House and a Senate, just like Congress. We also have our executive branch with our president. It's the North Dakota governor and all the employees and those carrying out the laws, executing the laws. And we have our third branch of government, our judicial branch, headed by the North Dakota Supreme Court. So perhaps you've seen this in a textbook, the 3 branches of government, and I didn't understand the importance of this till I got involved in the state legislature and the process. All right, so what do state legislators do? They, all together, as the legislature, create state laws and set the state budget. So you really want to know that they are setting our laws for the whole state and setting that state budget. We are one of 4 states that they only meet every 2 years. Most state legislatures meet every year, but we do every 2 years. And so they have to be planning out that budget for a 2-year process. They meet to make the laws during the legislative session. So again, that's every 2 years in odd numbered years. So for 2025, that's coming up, usually meets January to April in those odd numbered years. And this is where you can take action because this is where the action on legislation and bills happen. And our legislators represent their constituents. So that's us, those people that live in North Dakota in their districts, they're representing us at the state capitol. And they want and need to hear from you. And this is our Capitol building in Bismarck where they meet. So who is in our state legislature? There are 141 North Dakota citizens. It is a citizen legislature. It's not full-time. These are part-time positions being a state legislature. They don't have special education, special experience to run and become a state legislator. They are citizens. We have 47 senators in our state legislature, and those colors represent the political parties, red being Republican, blue being Democratic, and PL, which is our Democratic Party in the state. We have 94 people in our House of Representatives. So we have these 141. You can see it's about 89% Republican and 11% Dem MPL, our Democratic Party. So the Republican Party does have a supermajority in our state legislature. It's 25% women in our state legislature. So that did go down about 3 percentage points after this election. So we have fewer women this time. We have 4 Native legislators, which went up. We had 2 in the last session, and now we have 4 after this election. And finally, some common occupations. We have retirees, we have farmers and ranchers, business owners. And why is this? Why are these the common jobs? Well, every 2 years, these individuals have to go and live in Bismarck, or if they're there, stay there and do this full time during session. They do it Monday through Friday, like a full-time job for 4 months out of the year. So if your job or life isn't flexible, it can be very hard to go serve in the state legislature. So you will see a lot of retirees and business owners and farmers and people who can take time to go and make our laws. How do legislators get elected? Well, this is a map of North Dakota with our 47 districts. And you'll see they're all different shapes and sizes geographically. Well, they are based on population. So some of the larger ones they're in the more rural areas. So you have to gather more land and people to make up about 16,000 people per district. And so in our larger cities like Fargo, Grand Forks, there's probably multiple little districts because they can capture more people. And they're elected out of these districts, our legislators, every 4 years they have a term. And so it's staggered. So in even numbered years, like 2024, you'll have your even numbered districts in the presidential election cycle. And then in the midterm election cycle, every 4 years, you'll have your odd numbered districts up for election. So this is how you elect your legislators. They are now limited to 2 terms in each chamber. So when you elect your House member, they will get 8 years if they get elected again. But that's as much as they can serve. And then they could go over and run in the Senate as well. So every 10 years, I should mention, after the US Census, these boundaries get redrawn because they're based on population, and the census is the counting of people. So you might have experienced your legislative district getting a redraw after the 10-year mark. All right. We're going to get to know a district right in the middle, District 14. It is quite large geographically because it is a more rural district, a lot of smaller towns, a lot of farming in that area. And one of the largest cities is Rugby, North Dakota, with a population of 2,500. And it's also claim to fame geographical center of North America. So we are pretending we live in Rugby, North Dakota right now. And we want to know who are our state legislators who are serving our district. So this is a preview of our beautiful state legislative website, NDLEGIS, ndlegis.gov. And we have a very good state legislative website. You just have to know kind of where to go. So if you want to find your legislators, the easiest way is going to this homepage. And at the very top right, you can click Find My Legislator. And you can enter your house number and your zip code, and then you get there. So I entered a random address in Rugby, North Dakota, up here on the top right there. And then it brought me to the screen, and you choose the icon next to your house address over here. Click on the icon, and then it brings you to your legislators. So if I live in Rugby, these are my 3 legislators. I got Senator Jerry Klein, Representative John O. Nelson, and Representative Robin Weiss. These are who are representing my district and want to hear from me because they represent me. So I want to know their contact information to reach out to them during legislative session or beforehand. I am going to click on their name or their photo to find out more about them. So we have Representative John O. Nelson, and we can see he's a retired farmer, where he went to college, the boards he served on. He's married to Sid and has 3 children, And he's been in the House since 1997, which will change soon because of those term limits we now have. On the right is an important piece of information that you should save: the email or the cell phone if you like to call people. So you want to have this contact information handy for when you are contacting them about a bill that you care about. So gather their email addresses, do it with each one of them. You'll have 3, and save this for the legislative session. Okay, so if you want to level up in December and start getting involved, do this process. Find your legislators on the website and gather their email addresses. You can even email your legislators to introduce yourself and share an issue or two you care about. So you can email them even this week. They get a lot and lots of emails during session. So if you never introduce yourself to your legislators, I recommend shooting them an email. You could email them all at once and introduce yourself and share which city you're in. So some tips are: be polite and be brief, and thank them for serving in state office. So if you don't contact them, they might not hear from someone in your neighborhood with your life experiences, in your profession, if you don't reach out to them. And another way you can level up in December is help a couple friends find their legislators' emails to get prepared for a session. You could even help them find them and just send them the email addresses and say, here you go. All right, so that's the state legislature, what it is, who's in it, how they get there, and how to find your legislator on the website. Now we are going to pass it over to Carol Sawicki to do how a bill becomes a law.
Hello there. As Whitney just said, my name is Carol Sawicki. Every state has a different process, has different legislators and different rules. So I'm going to explain how it go through it in North Dakota. What is a bill? A bill is a state law in the making. Bills create, amend, which is change, or repeal laws. Laws that are approved, or bills that are approved become laws. And laws go into the North Dakota Century Code, which is the big batch of all the laws that apply to North Dakota at this time. A bill is an idea for a law. Legislators have lots of ideas. 800 to 900 ideas are introduced into each legislative session. We have heard this year is probably going to be a bigger number than that. We've heard there are already over 40 bills that were introduced just referring to property taxes. So that's a lot. But all of these bills will not make it all the way through to becoming laws. Most of them, or many of them certainly, will either be withdrawn or combined with others, because all 42 of those ones to do with property taxes, there's a lot of similarities, and the people work together to make them just one bill. Okay, this is what a bill looks like as it's being introduced. At the top, it's the bill number. Over here is who are the bill sponsors or co-sponsors. All bills that are introduced have to be sponsored either by a legislator, or a few of them are introduced from legislative council, but essentially most of them have to be introduced by the legislator, an individual or several legislators. And then over here is the description of the bill, and underneath is the actual verbiage of the bill. In here, you'll see, like right here, this is crossed off. This means this bill was to change an already existing law, and we wanted to, and when this bill was passed, this information was removed, and this underlined stuff was added. So that's how you can tell when you look at a bill what they're trying to accomplish. You read through it, you notice something's crossed off. Okay, they want to get rid of that. And then you see things that are underlined and added, and things that are the same or not notated are just going to be the same as they were before. The bill is submitted by a legislature, a committee, or legislative management, which is a group of legislators that do this sort of thing. Once a bill is submitted, the bill clerk assigns a number to it. All House bills, all things that go through the House first, their number starts with between 1001 to 1999 if they went that far. All the ones in the Senate start with 2001 and go through the 2000s. Once a bill is assigned a number, it is assigned to a committee. In both the House and the Senate, what are committees? They're where lawmaking work happens. A group of legislators evaluate a bill, make recommendations to the whole chamber, the House or the Senate. There's examples here of the different committees: Agriculture Committee, Education, Judiciary, Human Services, and Transportation. There's a lot of, I don't know the exact number, but there's quite a few different committees, and the committee members are assigned, the committee members, the people who are going to be on a certain committees are assigned those committees during the organizational session, which already happened. So they already know which committee they're going to be on. And each legislator is on, I believe, 4 different committees, sometimes more, I think. Okay, then there's a bill that you're interested in. You're interested in a bill about nail salons. That's one that came to my mind for some reason. The committee chair schedules a public hearing on a bill. The schedule comes out every Thursday during session, and you can see that schedule on the legislative website. At the committee hearing, which is given a certain date and time, the sponsor introduces the bill. Then they hear testimony in support of that bill, testimony in opposition to that bill, and neutral testimony. And then the chairperson closes that hearing. Then, depending how controversial that bill is, they could discuss and take action on the bill right that same day. But usually they have a different day and do committee work at that committee session. And that's when changes or amendments are made to the majority of bills. They discuss, and then they finally have a vote on that bill. Each member of the committee gets to vote. They can pass. They can say do pass, do not pass. If there's amendments, then they go through it again and pass or vote on it again. And finally, at the end, if the majority of that committee says they believe this bill should pass, then it gets sent down to their house, the House or the Senate. The House committees go to the bills that go in the House committees go to the House. Bills that are in the Senate committee go to the Senate first, or if there was a tie, they could go without recommendation. And then the bill is scheduled for a vote by the whole House or Senate, depending where it started. Okay. And you can certainly, yes. Okay. And then once it goes to the floor of the House or the Senate, a member of the original committee presents the bill, the speaker calls for a debate, there's a floor vote on the bill. In the Senate, 24 yes votes to pass, in the House, 48 yes votes to pass. And if it doesn't pass, the bill is defeated. If it does pass, it's moved forward to the other chamber. What we're describing here is like the simplest way a bill can go through. A lot of them get amended, come back and forth several times, but at the final thing is when the House or the Senate votes on it, and if it passes, then it goes off to the other house, the other chamber. So then in the second chamber, they repeat the same procedure. There's a committee hearing, committee work, and a floor vote. And if it passes the second chamber, the bill goes to the governor to consider. If the governor signs it, it's a North Dakota law. If the governor vetoes it, then it goes back to the legislature where they can override with a 2/3 majority vote. And as I just said, this is the simple and straightforward way to explain it, but there's a lot of back and forth, a lot of amendments on many of the bills. So it's not usually quite this straightforward, but that's the end result. Okay, quick review. Bill is submitted and assigned to a committee, a public hearing and committee work action, a floor debate and a vote. If it passes, it goes to the second chamber. And if it passes both House and Senate, the governor signs it into a law. Okay, I think now I'm going to pass it on to Amy. She's going to talk to you about public testimony.
Yes. Hello, everyone. I'm Amy Phillips, and I'll be talking a little bit about how to prepare for public testimony. And then Whitney is going to be giving us some details about how to actually submit testimony to the legislative committee. Okay, next slide. What is public testimony exactly? Well, it's an opportunity for you to be heard by state legislators, and it's an opportunity to actually influence state law. It's also an opportunity for you to publicly express your support or opposition to a bill or to suggest changes to it. In other words, the public will hear or see your testimony if you submit testimony to the state legislature. And a committee hearing is the only place that you can share your public testimony. Carol kind of went through that a minute or two ago. In other words, you cannot submit testimony while the committee is in a work session, and you cannot submit testimony during a floor discussion or floor vote of a bill. So it's only the committee hearing where you can share your thoughts about a bill. Next slide. And legislators do need to hear from you. Hundreds of bills, as Whitney said, are submitted each session. And legislators count on us to tell them what we think about the issues that are represented in the bills. They need to know how a bill, a potential law, would impact us, either positively or negatively. And public testimony is a great way to let them know. Now, there are several ways to give testimony. You can share your testimony in the committee hearing either verbally, in person, or virtually, or you can submit written testimony only. Or generally, people, if they're going to do oral testimony, either in person or virtually, will also submit their testimony in written form. And legislators do want a written copy of your testimony. If you're testifying, submitting some testimony in person, you can also take your testimony with you to give to the clerk during the committee hearing to distribute. Written testimony is very important and very good, and it's also very important to contact our legislators throughout the session via email or calling them, but providing verbal public testimony is probably the most powerful and effective way of influencing what's happening in our legislature. So starting your testimony, whether it's written or verbal, is very simple. All you want to do is write or say committee chair, and you can just say committee chair, or you can use their name, and members of the committee. My name is Jane Doe, and I'm here in support of House Bill 1001. I support this bill because, then you would go on to say or write why. Or if you're opposed to the bill, committee chair and members of the committee, my name is Jane Doe, and I'm here in opposition to HB 1001, and I oppose this bill because. So that's just a very simple and good way to start your testimony. Next slide. Then going on with what else to include in your written testimony, you want to be sure and be brief, simple, polite, and thanking the committee at the end of your written testimony. When the league has submitted testimonies, we try not to do anything more than one page. We want to make it as easy as possible for committee members to read our position on a particular bill. You're outlining your main points in the first paragraph if possible, and highlighting important points in bold. Your position on the bill, why you're taking this position, things that you think are the most important, you'd want to highlight in bold. Give recommendations for changes to a bill if you have those changes in mind. Before submitting your testimony, it would be a good idea to have someone look over, proofread your testimony before you submit it, and know the deadline to submit your testimony. Again, that can be found out on the legislative website, which Whitney's going to be giving us more information on coming up here. Also, very important to be mindful of the tone of your written testimony and your oral testimony, as much as the content. So generally not a good idea to be sarcastic or disrespectful. You all probably know this because that may not be the most influential approach to your position on a bill. When you get this, when you get this slideshow, you'll be able to click on this sample testimony or example testimony and see a sample of testimony. Next slide. In-person testimony, if you're going to be right there in person, some of this you know already or you can intuit, but just as a reminder, plan what you're going to wear ahead of time. Clearly, you probably wouldn't want to wear anything that may have a political statement on it. You want to be courteous and respectful to committee members and attendees. Try not to read your testimony word for word. That can get kind of boring. So practice summarizing what you want to say ahead of time. Speak in plain language on topics where you have expertise. In other words, professional jargon or techno babble may not be particularly helpful to those listening to you. Don't repeat what others have said previously in the hearing. I mean, it's good maybe for reinforcement, but at the same time, you want to make sure that people are really hearing you by offering something a little different. Thank the committee for their time and the opportunity to testify. And you may want to prep ahead of time any potential questions that might come to you by committee members so that you're ready to respond to any questions that you may receive. Next slide. Virtual testimony, you can provide testimony from the comfort of your own home in a committee hearing if you'd like to. And you'll be emailed instructions after you submit your testimony online to the ndlegis.gov website. Be ready during the committee hearing time. Sometimes the hearings run behind or ahead of schedule, so you want to make sure you're in there virtually ahead of time. Make sure your virtual background is clean or have a filter on. Speak slowly and clearly. And sometimes people who are testifying end up having technology issues. So the chair may ask you to come back later, put somebody else in front of you if they're having trouble hearing you, if there's some technology issue, and let you testify a little bit later if there's time for testimony. Next slide. Remember, if you don't feel comfortable giving public testimony, you can still email or call your state legislators to urge a yes or no vote on a bill. That's very important. And you should contact your legislators about the bill, even if you gave public testimony in the committee hearing. Next slide. So just to review, steps to public testimony, decide which bills you want to track. Check every Thursday evening to see if the bill has a hearing coming up. Write your testimony out ahead of time in Word or Google Doc and save it as a PDF file. Submit it on the legislative website by the deadline. And also you have the opportunity of sharing your public testimony verbally during the committee hearing, in person or virtually, or you can just watch the hearing online as an observer. So now I'm going to turn it over to Whitney, who's going to give us some detail about the legislative website and submitting testimony.
All right, thank you, Amy. So I'm going to give you a tour of the legislative website using screenshots. And you might want to just sit back and relax for this part. Take time to get a drink and sit and drink something, because this part will be especially helpful during the legislative session. So you will receive the recording. This might be the part where you want to return to and rewatch when it's happening. But you can sit back and relax for this. Here we go, the legislative website. Okay, again, ndlegis.gov is a beautiful website where everything about the legislative session and the legislature sits for us. You can see on the front page, there's a legislative calendar if you want to know what's coming up. Many different things you can find here, but we're going to focus on 3 different things. How to watch a hearing or floor vote or any type of video for the session. How to track or find a bill. And how to submit public testimony. So we're focused on those 3 things. So the first thing I'm going to go over very shortly. If you want to watch something that is happening right now in the legislature, you know your committee hearing is happening and you're virtual, you're far away. You can watch it by clicking on the top video tab. So there you are. Click the video tab and you can find what is happening right now. Everything else that you'll need is going to be in this session information. It's everything you need about the legislative session. And again, you'll see at the top right, Find My Legislator is right there on the homepage for you to find. Okay, so for session information, these are the 2 sections you want to be looking at. 1, the bill information, all those hundreds of bills, all those bill ideas, they're all going to be in that bill information section. If you want to know what's coming up, you're going to be looking in the calendar and hearing schedule section. All right, So there are 3 ways that you can find bill information, and I'm going to go through them. Number 1, if you already have your bill number, let's say you're following an organization and they give you a bill and you want to be tracking it, right on the home page at the top right or on mobile, you'll hit the drop down. There's like a little drop down and you'll go to it, find a bill, top right where the arrow is pointing, just enter the bill number. So for example, if it's House Bill 1001, you're just going to enter the number 1001 and you will find the bill information for that specific bill. So this is the first way, just really easy, top right, enter those 4 digits. Option number 2, you want to search by topic. Let's say there's an issue or topic area that you're very concerned about. You can see the bills by topic. The Legislative Council, the staff there, they index them by topic. So if you go to the Session Information tab at the top, right here, you'll see that under bill information, there's a major topic index. That is clickable. You can click that and see all the topic areas that the bills are under. So let's say you care about agriculture, ambulances, attorneys. You can click on one of these areas to see all the bills or ideas for laws under that topic area. So I clicked on elections from the 2023 regular session, so last session, and you can see a bunch of laws or potential laws that would impact elections. So if you, on the right, there is the bill number, you can click that to see that bill information. And I'll show you what that looks like in a moment. Finally, option number 3, you want to search all of those hundreds of bills. You can do so. Go back to the Session Information tab right here at the top. And then under bill information, you go to bills and resolutions. You click on that. And you can see everything. You might not want to do this option unless you have a lot of experience with the session. You might want to focus on 1 or 2 bills or under the topic index, but this will have everything. If you scroll down, you'll see bills and bills and bills and bills. At the top, you'll see you can search the text for a word. Let's say you want to search nail salon, again, like Carol mentioned. You can search for anything that regards nail salons and it will pull the bills up for you. So down here, I call them the bill cards. You'll see HB 1001 is this first card. This is a bill, House Bill 1001. Then you see HB 1002. Each of these cards has that bill information and you can scroll through until you get to the Senate bills that will start with SB 2001. So this is when you want to see all the bills and search the text. So if I click on this card, I get to the bill profile, and this is everything you need to know about the bill. So if you enter your number on the website, the easiest way that I showed you the first time, you enter 1001, you will get this information too. So any of those 3 ways, you'll get to this bill profile. And I'm going to show you how to navigate this. This is everything you need to know about that one bill. You'll see at the top there are tabs. There's the overview tab, versions, actions, video, hearings, testimony. These are where all the things live. So under versions, I'm clicking the versions tab. This is the current text of the bill. Remember, we looked at what a bill looks like. Carol showed us with the House bill, the sponsors, what language it's adding or subtracting from state law. You can see those here. And the current version is the bottommost one right here. If you click this under versions, you'll see that bill language and you can read it. Under the actions tab, this can be fun to see where the bill has gone, what has happened with it. So you see this bill, actually the bill that Carol showed you, HB 1424, it was introduced and then there was a committee hearing and they gave it a do pass, 8-6, that was a close one. And then what happened in the House? It got 83 yeas and 11 nays, so it passed in the House. And then it goes over to the Senate. So you can see all the actions that had happened on the bill. Next up, you can watch video. Everything that was happening in those committee hearings or in the floor vote, you can watch them by clicking one of these little icons. You can see the testimony that was given and the committee hearing that happened. We're going to go over to the testimony tab quick, and you can read all the written testimony that was submitted on the bill. You're going to click over to this document number, and you can read what Liz Conmey said, or what Barbara Hedrick from the League of Women Voters said, our testimony. So it's a great way to see even the positions people took. So you see 2, 4, 5, 5 in favor. There's an opposition. You can look through and see how many supported or opposed the bill. Okay, we are going to move over to how to submit your public testimony. First step, option number 1. We're still in that bill. We're in that bill profile still, and there's a hearings tab. When a hearing is scheduled, only when one is scheduled, you'll see on the right the submit testimony link that you can click. If there's no hearing coming up, you will not see that, just if there is a hearing coming up. So this is where every Thursday evening you can find your bill on the website, click the hearings tab, and see if there's one coming up for you to submit testimony. You have an option number 2 to submit your testimony. So you can come back to the session information tab. And again, remember, here's what's coming up. This is the schedules. Standing committee hearings. These are the committee hearings where the bills will be heard by the legislators in that committee, and you can submit your testimony. So you're going to click that. And then you can search at the top right for the bill number, or you can scroll through. These will be all of the committee hearings that are coming up in the next week. Remember, this comes up Thursday evening, and it will be the next week, Monday through Friday's schedule. You can click submit testimony, and you'll see the deadline is usually an hour before the committee hearing starts that your testimony is due. Quick drink break. Here we go. So if you click submit testimony, what do you need to submit? You will see this information that you will have to fill out. Your name, your email address, your phone number, and your city and state. So you put in your own contact info. Only add an organization or an agency if you are officially representing one. If you are officially representing one, then you put one in. Otherwise, you're representing your own self as a citizen. So if you're a League of Women Voters member on this call, the board, like say the Bismarck-Mandan League of Women Voters would have to vote and make you their spokesperson. So if you're a league member, you're just representing yourself as an individual and not the League of Women Voters. All right, then you scroll down one more past that information, and you can submit your testimony here. So you're going to select if your testimony is in support or opposition to the bill, and then the format. Will it be written only, written and oral for remote, written and oral in person? Click on one of those, and then you're going to browse your files. You see the button right there, and you can do a PDF or TXT. Usually it's a PDF. So you're going to save your Word document as a PDF file, and then you'll browse your files and find it on your computer. And then you'll hit submit, which is a button right below, and you did it. You have submitted public testimony written, and then you can just do written only, or you can go and give testimony or do it from your computer when the hearing happens. Okay, so again, this is the North Dakota Legislative website. We went over how to watch a hearing or floor vote, again, that video tab. We talked about finding a bill and tracking a bill, and how to submit your public testimony. All right, this is my section as well, and this is a shorter section. Don't worry about it. Don't worry, it's not quite as long as the others. The League of Women Voters of North Dakota does advocacy and has resources for you. So we focus mostly on voting and election bills. Our legislative priorities for 2025 are voting rights, ethics and transparency in government, and then campaign finance or money in politics. So if a bill comes up, and usually there are voting and election related bills, we will be tracking it. We tracked 39 voting and election bills in 2023, and we will be back at it again this legislative session. And this link here will be to our bill tracker page. If you're interested in voting and democracy issues, that will be where you can find our priority bills and what's happening with them. All right, if you want to stay informed on what's happening, especially with voting and election bills and democracy issues in the legislative session, you can become a member. Anyone of any gender, age 16 plus, can join the League of Women Voters. We send out regular legislative email updates, and we will have a monthly legislative update call that you can join to find out what's happening with all these voting and election bills. And this is the link. And I think Amy's going to put it in the chat on how to become a member. So that's one way to stay informed. Another thing we have is we have an app. It's called League in Action. We add action alerts on here for the legislative session. We put legislative updates, any advocacy events like this one is on there, and then you can get notifications right on your phone, and you can take action and then easily share through the app with your friends and family through text or email. We write text for you that you can customize. All right, we also have a web page called the Citizen's Guide to Lobbying that kind of covers a lot of what we covered today. If you prefer written material, it kind of talks about this information, how the session works, how to talk so your legislator listens. Everything you need is on this page. And again, this will be clickable when we send you the slides. We also have a YouTube page. And if you want shortened versions of some of this information, like how do I track a bill? How do I submit testimony? We even have How a Bill Becomes a Law, a song on here that's very popular with my children. A librarian wrote it and sings it and uses accordion. So if you want to, that doesn't entice you, I don't know what does. So this is our YouTube channel and you can watch those on there. All right, and if you want to stay connected to us, you can follow us on social media, on Facebook or Instagram, where we will keep you updated on the legislative session and what's happening and how a bill becomes a law. All that information will be on our social media. All right, and I am going, this is the last section. You made it through the training. I am going to pass it to Amy Phillips for a final review of the information, and then we'll open it up for questions.
And this will be a very short review. So let's move on to the next slide. So overall then, prepare for the session. Before the session starts, look up your state legislators, ndlegis.gov, save their contact information. Email your legislators ahead of the session to introduce yourself and share about an issue or more than one that you care about. Practice using the legislative website. Just get a cup of coffee or a cup of tea and sit down and just start poking around in there, all those pages that Whitney showed you. And follow organizations working on the issues you care about. Get involved with them or just keep track of what they're saying on their websites or socials. Next slide. During the legislative session, which starts January 7th, you want to track bills that Whitney just outlined for you on the website and take action on bills. Email your legislators urging a yes or no vote on a bill. Even if you're not going to write or submit testimony, stay in touch with your legislators and let them know what you think about these bills that are coming up. Submit your public testimony when the bill has a committee hearing scheduled, and share the bill with friends or family and show them how to take action themselves. And then finally, there is a session calendar on that website. We've summarized some of it here, but you can find a tab for calendar on the main web page for the legislature. And as you see here, January 7th is when the legislative session begins in 2025. The bill filing deadline for the House is January 20th. For the Senate is the 27th. Then on February 28th, there's what's called crossover, when the bills go to the other chamber for review. And March 3 to 4 is a small session recess. And then around May 2nd is when the session ends. And again, a reminder, the committee hearing schedule comes out every Thursday evening. So be watching for that. So last slide here. Thank you very much for joining our Legislative Advocacy 101 session. Thank you for being here. And we are going to open it up for questions and answers.